cell phones silent, please. And just to remind you,
He's a newbie.
yeah, I'm new to this. Just to remind you of the earthquake and evacuation procedures, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. But and I have no apologies so far, unless there are any that committee members want to raise now. No. So we'll move on to conflicts of interests. And Councillor Parsons.
Yes. So I have three. So the litigation information, the coroner's inquest, and the ombudsman. Is that all you need, or do you need?
That's all.
That's all.
And that's fine. We'll take those as declared, and we'll manage those as they come up in the agenda in the normal course. Which moves us on to the first item. Oh no, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. These have been pre-circulated. Do any committee members have any issues they wish to raise where they think these are not a true and accurate record of that meeting? I'll take that as a no, and I will resolve that we accept those as a true and accurate record. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Chairperson Sears. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much. That moves us on to the first item of business, 4.1, operating environment overview.
Hello, Council. So I'm opening today with an environment scan, really. And if you recall at our last meeting, I sort of took a macro view. And to support that, I've recently been provided, I'm just going to steal comment, copy. I've recently been provided with the Aon Local Government Emerging Risk Horizon Scan report. I have provided each of you with a copy today. You'll see there that it's very consistent with what we have raised at our last meeting, but please feel free to have a read, and if you have any questions arising out of that, then please let me know. But today's environment overview, I wanted to dive down really into our operating context, and the key point of this report is to just give you an awareness of how things are on the ground as we start to set our strategic direction with the LTP, as we navigate local government reform across RM reform, spatial planning, and simplifying local government, and we continue to deliver on our core priorities. And I think the key sort of theme emerging is capacity concerns within our organisation and the actions that the executive team need to take to make sure that we stay on top of those. And what ELT is doing in response is a couple of things. Firstly, we are doing a refresh of our strategic risks to make sure that we can stay focused on the really important things. In the past, we've had 28 or 29 strategic risks, which is too many really to enable us to focus on them. So we're going through a process of resetting those to make sure that we're focusing on the right things. And we're also going through a process of robust prioritisation of what is the work that we're going to do and where do we put our resources, and how do we make sure that we're making the best use of the capacity that we have. You'll hear today from our HR lead, Victoria Beale. She'll dive more into what we're seeing on the ground with regards to our people impacts, particularly around the retention issues that we're facing and the steps that we're taking to address that. And then finally in the report, you'll see there our internal assurance plan for FY 27 through to 29. We've taken a refresh of that as well. And the idea of that refresh was to firmly focus our assurance activities and align them very clearly to the core priorities of this council. Further, the assurance activities are really targeted to ensure that they're focused on activities that will endure through the transition to an amalgamated authority. That's sort of the broad brushstrokes of the paper, and I'm happy to take any questions, noting that Victoria will be presenting more on our people risk in a later paper.
Thank you, Pat. Does the committee have any questions?
Just on page 27 of the report you've just given us, it's got a maintain a specific misinformation social license risk entry.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Seriously. That's a very good question. I would
Sorry to drop that on you, but
my view on that is probably if we are starting to see misinformation come through on our social channels, etc., or that we would keep a register of that and then address it with a campaign of truth.
okay. Right.
Can I suggest, though, that as this report is only just provided to the committee, we've had really insufficient time to absorb it. Any questions, can we send them to Pip, and maybe Pip can send out an email answer rather than, because this is completely new.
Yes, and sorry for getting it to you so late, but it was hot off the press this morning for you, so.
Just probably a comment from me, Chair.
Absolutely.
Would we take that now? I know, and thank you through you, Chair, thank you. I know that obviously in the service delivery landscape, we're not picking up everything, but I do just feel like it's worth noting and commenting that on top of all of the work you've noted in there, the reshaping of our land management program, and particularly the delivery of the new pole nursery under the constrained environment and the delivery, I think it's 10,000 more poles now within that, is actually an exceptional piece of work and deserves just to be noted. So I wanted to add that to the few pieces you had there. Thank you.
Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, I just had more a comment than anything really. The report highlights, as if we didn't know, the absolute extent of change that's occurred over the last 3 or 4 years. Recall when we were first elected 4 years ago now, the business that was happening then, that kind of just doesn't happen now. If you think of Gabrielle, RM reform, and now local government reform, none of those things are business as usual, but they occupy a huge chunk of what we do. So it's just it's sort of a note about the extent of change that has occurred, and alongside that, a note of the sort of things that the staff are having to cope with and manage as a consequence of that. And it's really well highlighted in the report.
Laura, you have a question?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you. I agree with you, Councillor Sears, that it's a pretty comprehensive report. My question might be falling into 4.3 when we get into the other work plan report, but I'm wondering what other plans can be assured given the external factors. Just one thing that I've looked at is there any eradication projects occurring? I just noted that it's not achieved in the next agenda item.
I think we address that in 4.3.
Yes. We'll wait till that comes up in 4.3. Can I ask, with the assurance plan, how is that going to be undertaken and delivered and reported back to this committee or council? Because with the amount of change that is occurring, there's a huge heightening of the risk that this council is facing as a result of that.
The way that our assurance function operates is it's part of a shared service with Macquarie City Council.
Yes.
So we share an FTE to conduct these. The assurance program has at the moment been deliberately designed to focus on activities that will remain. So it has not been given the scope of assuring our transition process, either through the simplifying local government forum or through RM reform adoption. Those have been, at the moment, been deliberate exclusions because I think we don't know quite enough yet about how those things are going to play out or the governance forums at which they will be represented. The way in which these will be reported back is they go through an assurance audit. The subject matter experts both contribute to that process and then get a chance to review the draft findings and challenge or accept those findings. Once they come through, it follows our normal governance process. It will come to ELT for comment and then through to council as part of a fair paper.
So are they going to develop a plan for how they're going to, because they won't be able to cover everything. There must be some identification of key risks.
So page 17 in our pack today talks about the 3-year assurance plan that we have had agreed at ELT.
Those objectives, to me, just seem a bit vague. You know, review governance, integrity, quality, environmental information. I think we need more specific
Around
objectives.
the scope and what they're looking to.
I'm just concerned that they might get going, just run out of time and resource. And so I think it would be a good idea if they could develop a list of prioritised objectives and scopes and bring them back to this committee so they can confirm that they are the priorities for this committee. And then you might say we've got a plan of what we can expect back and reporting.
I'll just get Amy to come up as well. Sorry, I was having a think about that and I just wondered whether part of the point you've raised is addressed or could be addressed. So each assurance activity is also subject to specifically designed terms of reference, which are also agreed with the relevant business owner or subject matter expert. And so we're using that as the opportunity to take those broad overarching objectives and then sort of distill them down into, okay, if we're looking at HR, what's specifically in the frame here, what makes sense to look at, what don't we have capacity to look at, and sort of narrowing it there. So I don't know if that fully answers the questions, but is that sort of what you were driving at?
That's what I'm looking for, because it's a huge scope.
Yeah.
And I just think with a shared resource with Hastings City, we're never going to cover this. So this committee needs to say, well, these are the things that are keeping us awake, and we need to get reports on those. Make sure we don't get very generic or generally scoped reports that don't address the key issues that this committee has.
Yeah. So I think the question then is how we get that input at that terms of reference stage to make sure that the assurance activity is going to answer the questions most pressing to the committee. And I think given that these run on a quarterly cadence, we can get in front of those and start preparing the terms of reference in advance and bringing them here through for comment and acceptance.
Yeah, and we really need to see the annual plan to make sure we don't get a report in the third meeting, which has said we run out of resource and time. And so all the other things that we thought we were going to do, we can't do. So if we could get a high level one for the year, and then I agree, get the committee to agree on that, and then get specific projects scoped and agreed.
Okay, so we can take that away and just think about how we, get you feeding into that process.
And so how are we going to do that? Because if we rely on coming up with the next meeting, there's a quarter of the year gone, and we haven't made any progress. Yeah. So how are we going to move forward on this?
So my suggestion is, at the moment, we are looking at asset planning and life cycle management. The terms of reference of that is drafted. So we could do a review out of cycle with this committee, potentially via email, and then bring the land and water health one to the committee in November.
Okay, is that going to be enough to make sure we get through all of these?
Might need to do both of those
was
two in
gonna say,
advance, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should do them both. in
And then in
advance.
November, we bring the flood modelling TORs.
I think we need to, if we can do that, get the detailed scope, draft scope, I should say, circulated to the committee shortly.
Yeah.
And we get the committee to respond, and hopefully we can get this moving, because I'm just concerned at a time of very heightened risk, we're going to be so far behind, it'll be hopeless. Any further questions? Councillor Clerk?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, because the issues you raised were highlighted here. I've made some notes around that. I'm assuming we're talking Q1 as the current financial year. We're turning to Q1 reduced flood risk, given that we're on the 19th of August. Firstly, can you tell me how far down the road are we with that assessment review?
Amy, do you have that detail to hand? Or
I
we can come
don't,
back
no,
to
I
it?
don't,
Sorry,
sorry.
have that to hand.
And I had a specific, that goes to that question about the scope of that a review. For example, I had, does it include over design event planning, those sorts of questions, and there are a number of others raised. For example, Q2, land and water health, given our conversations around capacity for monitoring, what is our water auditing capacity and compliance look like? Capabilities to actually to do that. Does Q3 telemetry conclude the Wairoa situation? And a note going to further down the page, Q3 financial year 28, review of the emergency response preparedness, when in fact there's a whole preparedness assessment already taking place with CDEM, which I think was concluded in June. So how does that relate to that indication in the plan that we're going to do that? So can you help us out there, please?
Okay. So a couple of things to address. I think firstly, we will take an action to circulate the draft scope of reviews number 1 and 2, as well as an update on progress against plan for those reviews to this committee via email, and we will bring the draft scope of the third review to the November fair. With regards to the emergency response review, that is related to our internal incident management teams who get stood up for an emergency, not separate to CDEM.
I hear you, but CDEM are doing the same thing as well. So
CDEM are not reviewing our HBRIC response, is my understanding.
so this is incident. Well, okay. We're supposed to take a systems approach. It sounds like we're taking a very insular approach. I can't see how we'd run a preparedness response capability assessment without considering the wider system. That's what we're trying to avoid. But nevertheless, that's further down the track. Let's come back to reducing flood risk. And we're looking at asset assessed long-term investment decisions, of which we are in the midst of in terms of the long-term plan. So how do we number one, feed that assurance process into our decision making for the long-term plan?
Yep, that is a good question, and I'll take that one away as well.
Laura, you have a question?
Kia ora. Thank you for both of those comments. That actually ties back into what I was asking in the original, with context or specificity. So I'd wonder if those plans can align a bit better, or assurances can be aligned better with 4.3. Because what we're talking about right now is actually they look siloed and they look separate, and while we're guaranteed around natural hazards for planning, there's actually no other connection with 4.3 with the insurance plans. That's what I was really getting at there in a nice way.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question.
So I guess that's a suggestion to
Yeah.
bring the high level of the 4.3 into what the chair was asking after me.
And I think this is sort of opening up possibly a broader question, but what we've tried to do is design the audit or assurance plan around activities that the council identified as critical priorities. Yet I am aware, obviously, we are starting to design a new LTP, and as a result, there may be some changes needed to this plan. So I think we're really open to making sure that we're looking at the activities that are a priority to this council. And so I think the suggestion that we've got on the table, which is bringing the plan to you with some more detail around the scope, terms of reference, timeframes, etc., and then making sure that they're aligned to the key items that you really care about and want to make sure that you've got a high level of assurance over, keeping in mind that we have a half FTE on this and so have reduced capacity.
Well, that's really the key point. We've got a shortage of resource. Are we going to get the best use of it or from it? And so we need to prioritise what they do. Okay, if there are no more questions,
There is,
sorry.
yes, there is one.
Okay.
I just want to go back to your service delivery landscape. You've identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 5 major current imperatives. 1, flood resilience program. 2, spatial planning leadership. Avian flu preparedness, investment in technology and business systems, long-term plan. The question is, with other comments in the paper today, is the capacity to do justice to any or all of those key imperatives. Are we needing to ensure we've got capacity one way or the other? What can we do about that?
It is an ongoing conversation internally within our organisation around where to put our resources, which are obviously finite, and we're all aware of the financial environment in which we operate. ELT is very live to those conversations. There are some definite pressure points, particularly simplifying local government would be a key one. However, our Head Start proposal does include requests for additional assistance from central government to help us get that across the line. With the others, I would say at the moment, and Chris, I'll double check if he agrees with me, at the moment the others on the list are adequately resourced, but the pressure is on the team, and I think that's probably my key message, that we are live to it as an ELT. We are having to prioritise, and at the moment we are prioritising really core, and you may then see, as 4.3 shows, that there have been some trade-offs.
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering whether, in light of that assurance, that there is some more detail provided. So if they are the key issues, and I'd suggest putting in the local government as another line item. So we've got a range of imperatives either in play or coming down the pipeline. Can we have some sort of paper that says, yes, we've got sufficient resources for this. These are what we're doing, and this is the resource that we're applying. And if not, then I think the executive needs to come back and say we need more money. And I think we ought to be conscious of that, particularly in light of this assurance plan that you've got in play as well. I'm just seeing a total clash of priorities going on. You just don't have enough staff and resource.
And it's probably fair to say on some of those items, there's a level of uncertainty about the resourcing required over the next 18 months. So that's part of that continuous environmental scan as well. So,
But what are you going to do about it? You know, that's the,
well, we'll continue to report, so it's just acknowledging first such as simplifying local government. We're at the broad steps, but our precise involvement and the depth of that involvement is probably still to be worked through. And so we're unable to come up with a definitive plan about how we resource that. The first step is to understand the ask. So all I'm pointing at is there's some uncertainty around that level of involvement and the depth of involvement.
I also take your point and think there's something we could do around, I'm saying this on the fly without talking too much, but these new sort of pieces of work or emerging pieces of work, if we at an ELT level start to sort of have our top 10 and a dashboard, you know, red, amber, green light against them and start to look at them a bit more holistically, I think could be useful. And then we can bring that level of reporting through in this sort of environment scan and assurance list as well.
see, I'm seeing, I think you need another $1 million.
That's right.
I think you need another $1 million. So
Can I make a suggestion here? Through you, Chair. I think Councillor Curtin sort of nailed, we have these two pieces. The simplifying local government, I think we're going to get clarity quite quickly on any funding or resourcing. Spatial plan, I know, is coming together now for, again, funding and resourcing. But the point you make, Chair, around the assurance plan and then the colliding of these two pieces, I think it would be really useful to see that once we have those final figures alongside this, and it may be exactly as Councillor Curtin suggesting, whether it's a resource or two that we know are managing these both pieces, the assurance plan and the urgency on that, and our priority pieces, that we can see how that might fit together. It might be a shared resource or something else. And perhaps I think what I'm hearing from Councillor Curtin is that we probably prefer to be ahead of that and prepared to look at budget requirements for that more quickly than retrospectively. Yeah. So I really support those comments. Yeah.
So what's realistically possible for management to come back with in the meantime, so we don't lose time? So I'm just thinking of the recommendation is that we just receive a note. I think we actually need a bit more than that, but there's no point asking for it if it can't be delivered. So what can we do in the next quarter?
Well, we can come up with, by the next quarter, I believe we will be in a position to,
During the next
quarter, we will be in a position to articulate the resource requirement of those key pieces of work, because they will all be fairly well framed up by that stage. Certainly for simplifying government, I'll be clear, only through till March, because that's the next milestone.
Yep.
But we will be in a position to be able to frame up those pieces of work, what our contribution is to those pieces of work in terms of both output and resource requirement. And then we will know whether, and we'll be in a position to articulate, do we have the capacity and capability in-house to resource those pieces of work alongside BAU? And so I think by the next Fair Committee, we would be able to know whether or not those things are achievable. In fact, probably prior.
So we cannot expect anything more until the next meeting.
I think we'd be in a position to.
There will be some work coming through around spatial planning and etc., outlining the general framework and resourcing. So there will be elements brought to council, but in terms of a package, that timing is about right.
If there are no further questions, then I think the recommendation as it's framed is about all we can expect. Noting that we've asked for more. So do I have a mover and seconder for the resolution as it stands?
Koklinski?
Koklinski. My apologies.
Tony's fine.
Thank you, Tony. Do I have a seconder as well? You, Lord. Those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. Thank you, carried. Which brings us on to item 4.2, the year-end accounting assumptions, judgments and valuations. Welcome.
Righto. I'll just briefly do introductions. So I'm Talia Foster, the interim CFO, and Nolan Nord is our senior group. Nolan will present the paper.
Good morning, councillors. I present to you this morning the year-end assumptions, judgments and valuations paper. This is in response to preparing our 30th June 2026 annual report. We are still in the process of finalising that piece of work in preparation for our audit in about a month's time. And I will take this paper as read and open up the floor for any questions if you've got any.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? If there are not, I've got a few. The whole purpose of this report is to make sure there's appropriate governance oversight on the preparation of the annual accounts. And I just believe the report, while very helpful, is a bit lacking in some key areas. And we start on page 21. You say, for example, point 11, management has applied appropriate methodologies and utilised available evidence. Can you just go into a bit more detail as to what you've done so the committee can understand that, please?
Sure. In terms of the methodologies and approaches that we've taken for preparation of this year's annual report, it is largely consistent with what we've done in the previous years. We've had quite a bit of staff changeover in the finance team, and for that reason, we've only been able to look at what we've done previously and apply the same methodologies. In terms of any significant changes, there hasn't really been much or any in that case. In terms of the valuers that we've used for this financial year, we've only had a few valuations done, which is mainly in response to investment property and forestry. Those valuers that we've used are consistent with the previous valuers that we've used. And in terms of their expertise and their competence, they are generally assessed by our auditors as well. And for that reason, we do believe that they are appropriately competent to do those valuations. And in terms of general estimations and assumptions that we've used, we have looked at the information that is available in the market, looking at general inflation rates and just general economic information out there.
And if I can just add, while there's a significant amount of work that we haven't yet been able to do and are still working through, with fresh eyes coming in, what we have seen, we do believe that the previous methodologies are also consistent with what we see in local government.
Okay, so nothing has come to your attention that would cause you to question the appropriateness of what you've done in the past?
Nothing has come to our attention, no.
Okay. I would like to see that made explicitly clear in these papers, please.
Okay.
My apologies for being not living here, but for example, I can see CBRE is a reputable valuer, but I don't know or haven't heard of Maurice at all. So I have questions. You say that the auditors have previously been satisfied with their competence?
That's correct.
Okay.
I had a brief look. So these valuers were engaged before my start date.
Okay.
So I am placing reliance on my previous or predecessors in terms of the valuers that we have engaged. But I have had a bit of a look in terms of what they offer to the market, and they have been in operation for approximately 40 years, and they do seem to have a really good reputation.
Thank you. Can I also ask, in terms of the provision for credit losses, can you just tell me what the provision is currently and what is it or was it the previous year, and what has been the movement in receivable balances in the same period?
Sure. I can confirm that the expected credit loss provision that we've had for both rates and non-rates at the start of the financial year was about approximately $420,000. That has reduced to about $230,000 this year.
Sorry, I
And
didn't catch the current figure.
420 to 230,000.
Okay,
The
thank
large
you.
driver for that is a derecognition of previous debtors that we've provided for that have either paid their debt or credit notes have been issued for that debt. In terms of the receivable balance, I will need to just confirm that because I do not have that on hand.
Can you confirm that there has been a line-by-line evaluation of receivables and assuring the adequacy of that provision? Or has it just been a, to be right?
It's not been a she'll be all right. I have had a look at the debt specifically for non-rates. I've had a look at the debtors aging analysis to see what debt we've got and which aging brackets we've got. And we've also had a look at any companies that may have gone into liquidation and their debt outstanding, along with any debtors that we've handed over to DMC, our debt collection agency.
Okay, and have you considered collection efforts so far and their success or otherwise, or?
I have reviewed the historic rates or historic loss rate in terms of both mainly attributable for rates. So our historic over the last few years rate or debt loss for rates is approximately 1.5%.
Very good. Intangible assets, you comment based on work completed today. Can you just outline briefly for the committee what that involves?
Sure. Our intangible assets are consists mainly of carbon credits and a little bit of software and development expenses. The carbon credits are valued based on what's available in the market, the price available. So that has been revalued as at year-end. The remaining balance of software, we're looking at about approximately $600,000 to $700,000 in there.
Given the lack of success in the previous 5 auctions of carbon credits, are you still comfortable that there is a true market for these?
I will need to go back to the team to confirm that, but I do believe that we have sold some units during the financial year successfully.
Can you just report by email to the committee, please, on that, so we can resolve this quickly?
Yep.
Similarly, the estimation of useful life of assets, have you considered any asset retirements or disposals that have occurred in the last year in assessing the useful lives and the reasonable sort of depreciation rates, please?
What we have done this financial year is dispose of the assets that the finance team have been made aware of. What I do intend on doing for the new financial year is actually look at all the assets that we've got on our books and actually talk to the business to ensure that those assets are indeed in use and that none of those assets need to be additionally disposed of if they've got a no book value.
And with those ones that were disposed of, were there any significant losses sustained by council?
I will need to confirm that for you.
You confirm that, please. In terms of the early adoption of the new accounting standards, who made that decision? And what is the likely impact of taking that decision?
I just want to clarify that we have not early adopted any standards.
Well, I'm sorry, but the report says that you are proposing to adopt have not been early adopted. Sorry, misread it. I apologise.
It's all good.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
All good.
Any further questions from committee members? If not, can I have, well, I'll move that the Finance, Audit, Risk and Emergency Committee receives and notes the 2025-26 year-end accounting assumptions, judgements and valuation staff report. Second, please. Thank you, Michelle. All those in favour say aye.
Can I
Oh.
make a comment first, Chair?
Certainly.
I think your questions highlighted all of the pieces, probably information that would be useful in these reports and questions that would be useful for committee to be able to ask. So probably really just a suggestion. There were very specific pieces around assurances, confirmations of contractors' suitability, etc. That would be a very useful addition to the next reports. Really, I think the chair's highlighted exactly those types of secondary assurances on those. So I'd like to see that included in the next one. If we think that's
I agree. Good point. Thank you. Sorry. Any other comments? All those in favour of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Against no. Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 4.3. Interim levels of service results.
Morena, morena tato. I thank you for inviting me. This paper is to introduce the interim levels of service results for the annual report that will be going into the annual report. So I'll take the paper as read, but I'll just give you a few highlights from it. So the interim results are for all our performance measures as outlined in our current 3-year plan. We are reporting on year 2 of that 3-year plan. And just note that our current 3-year plan was an unaudited long-term plan as well. So these performance measures weren't audited at the time as well. It is subject through confirmation through the audit process. They will be going to our auditors, Ernst & Young, in the next couple of weeks. They get cracking on with the audit in September. It is usual for us to bring this report to this committee or previous versions of this committee, so there are no surprises in the results, noting that we don't bring it to council before adoption, so it is a chance for you to have a look at them. You do see our performance measures quarterly in our organisational quarterly report, so again, there shouldn't be any surprises as to what's on track or off track. We have the GMs in the room if there's any curly questions, but the headline results are we're largely on track with our levels of service measures as we were last year. There's no variances, major variances. We have a few results that are still waiting to come in, usually around our data, which takes a little bit longer to come through. So there's a couple of graphs on the back that you can compare how we landed last year and how it's looking this year as well. So I'm happy to take any questions on the process or if there's any specific questions on any of the measures within the report.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Louise?
I do. So the Lagoima not achieved. Is it largely due to the cyclone? There were a much bigger level of questions.
Leanne, I might defer to Leanne, who is our governance lead and has oversight of all of the requests coming in and that complexity that we're facing, I guess, going forward.
Through you, Chair. Yes and no. I would say the level of complexity has certainly increased since the cyclone, and the topics of the requests seem to be more specific, related to an activity rather than like general information that the council might hold. Also an increase in the number of requests that we've been getting, and largely the not meeting the timelines. Once you miss them, it's missed for the rest of the year. So it's not something that we can pick up as we go along. And it has been due to the complexity of responding. We use the measure of providing the information within 20 working days. So that's another thing that we might meet the legislative deadline of giving them the requester a response and telling them, yes, we're going to provide the information, we need more clarity, et cetera, within that 20 working days, but doesn't necessarily mean that we're able to provide all of the information within that first 20 days. So it may be that we've given them the decision, which meets the legislative requirements, but then we've missed the 20 days that internally we want to provide all of the information out within.
I can confirm, I've seen across the country a huge uptick in the number and complexity of employment requests, and most councils are struggling to meet the statutory deadlines because of that. So just the environment, I think there's a lot more questions going on, being raised by people, and very difficult with the resourcing that most councils have.
So it's a trend nationwide,
Yeah,
is it? Interesting.
yeah. I think, you know, there has been dissatisfaction with local government.
Yeah.
I think it'll get worse personally with the reform process. People will want to know what's going on. But yes, I've even seen an uptick in elected members raising employment requests, which I think is unusual.
That was one question.
Yes.
Sorry, I need it printed out, I think. I was going to ask a question around reader. Page 37.
Which page, sorry?
37. I wondered how do we determine achieved? How did we come to that the regional development was achieved? What are we measuring there?
Pip, you might want to answer that, but I can just give a background about the actual measure. We have agreements in place with Reader and Hawke's Bay Tourism, which obviously it's not this year. Obviously, we ceased funding them, so that's no longer required. That those funding agreements, we've got performance targets and reporting requirements in them as well. So we do have a letter, as I understand, with Reader on what they are providing, and that's our proxy funding agreement, as I understand. Pip, you might have some more context behind that one.
It's an interesting one, actually. The regional development performance measure is very much just around having those funding agreements in place so that the rate that we collect for economic development gets funneled through to the correct place. So we have those agreements in place, so have achieved that. And then there needs to be clear lines of accountability about what that money is being used to fund. So again, we have SLAs in place plus reporting back, so we can get a reasonably high degree of transparency over what ratepayer money is being used for. This report just highlights that as some of those original organisations were wound down, that funding was repurposed to stand up the IRO with some short-term funding made available for that, and then we will have a decision going forward into the next period of time as to where we would look to position that funding.
So just on that, because there was funding left over to help with the Head Start, that's correct, isn't it? Do we get to see how that was spent? Because I believe that's gone, and it was gone very quickly.
Absolutely, we can see how that's spent. So we will be getting accounts back from IRO as to where that money's gone. So we can provide that through to council.
Great, thank you. I do have another question, but I'll wait because I've got to try and find it.
Okay. Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go to Sarah, to the traffic lights results here. I'll take you to page 54. Firstly, I've just got a question. Chris might be able to answer this. This is the flood protection control works, performance measurement and target. Major flood protection infrastructure is maintained, etc. Does that include the Neighbour City Council flood protection infrastructure?
So this measure is for the previous financial year. So at that point in time, we were funding and operating our component of the Napier Urban Waterways. So that does include the Napier Yarny infrastructure.
Okay, and
That would probably come under drainage, in fact.
Yeah.
is it under the next?
Yeah.
Is it under drainage?
Yeah, because it's land drainage, it's primary purpose.
Sure.
it will come under.
Okay, so can we anticipate, you've got a placeholder there for that, that we have actually met that performance standard, that we had delivered everything we needed to do for the Napier City?
Yep, so that is grey because we'll be waiting for the final accounts as to in terms of the performance of that, particularly the operating budget.
I'll wait with great anticipation. The other questions relate to Wairu, and we've got them following a flood event, affected areas surveyed and programmed, and we've got a report. You're saying we've achieved that. Have we got a report on the Wairu event, flood event, in April of this year, 2026? Is there a report available?
So we refer to Central Hawke's Bay in April 2026. The most recent flooding in Wairu was in July, and I understand that we are currently authoring a report.
There were no events in Wairu for 2025, 26.
No, not major.
26, that resulted in major flooding of infrastructure.
Alrighty, thank you for that. The other question I've got is in regard to, this is on page 61, civil defence and emergency. We've got the 10-year, this is 10-yearly hazard research plan is approved. We've said achieved, and yet we're outside the 10-year period for the production of the hazard research plan. How do we tick yes when the answer is no?
I think Katrina's in the room and I probably.
Through you, Chair. I see that it is achieved. You're quite correct. It is outside the 10-year window. Work on the new hazard research plan is commencing with the group office now.
Are we green or red?
I think we're green.
Achieved in 25, 26.
My assumption was when it was agreed in June, that was the year 20, so it was like within a month of the end of the year, but I don't think it was adopted until the 15, 16 year. So it was borderline for green, but I put it as green because of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Nevertheless, rest assured, Councillor Curtin, the team has commenced that work to review that plan.
Great, thank you. That's all I've got, Chair.
Thank you, Laura.
Kia ora koutou anō. My questions relate to 3 areas. First, area 1, Māori partnerships. The first question is, how do we update this given the prioritising of the announcement? Are we going to be doing surveys, and how would our Māori partnerships have some assurances around that? And the other question under that is, how are you enacting the rangatira, ki te rangatira in that space? Kia ora. So that's the first question. The second question from 1 is, how are these committees canvassed? And I'm just given the announcement, the wording of decision making is a big claim. Perhaps some wording adjustments around that just to keep us compliant in that space. Do you want to answer those questions before I head into my other 5 for the other areas?
Just for clarity of the question, Laura, the
level of service measure for the annual satisfaction survey of treaty partners was not achieved for the 2025-2026 year. The baseline that was set required Hawke's Bay Regional Council to design a survey that we would put to partners, and through negotiation via operational forums and governance forums, it was determined that with many of our partners, there was a specific way that they wanted to undertake the ability to communicate their satisfaction with the treaty partnership. So where we landed in the 24-25 year was that this was through a series of forums. Some examples of that with Ngāti Pāhowira Development Trust, we have a reflect and review annual meeting with both an operational and governance layer there. Based on the sheer volume of engagement that has been happening with our treaty partners since April until now, several of those meetings have been delayed. So we have not completely satisfied all of those engagements. We have had some completed and we are continuing and progressing some of those at this stage. With regards to the questions around the number of decision-making arrangements with treaty partners that are supported in place, in setting this long-term plan, that was identified through that level of service measure that we recognise both formal co-governance committees as decision-making mechanisms, but operational decision-making as well. In September, Māori Partnerships alongside governance and partnerships will be coming to council to look at how we frame level of services for the next LTP. Does that answer the question?
Ka pai. Thank you, Tuarama. Just supplementary to that, what would be needed to get us out of the red there, in your opinion?
Less government reform announcements. No, I think we are confident that the work continues at the pace of our partner, at the pace of the trust with partners. So lots of the timings around those meetings have been set or delayed based on what partner entities have indicated to us is achievable and within their capacity at the moment.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to my next questions, if that's okay by you, Chair. It's concerning 3, the Enviro skills. How are these areas selected, and is there any initiative to link the outcomes there with the natural hazards and or impacts? Kōrero.
Tēnā koe. Enviro Schools is a national program which we assist Toi Mata Foundation to deliver into the Hawke's Bay region. The regional coordination responsibility sits within our Tūhonorau Community and Partnerships Rōpū, and with that it's primarily driven by the willingness or the capacity and capability of schools to participate. So all kura or early childhood education outfits within Te Mata Māui are aware that we are available and prepared to support them to participate in the Enviro Schools program. We have seen an increase, and we just want to recognise the tireless facilitators that we have working to lead up this kaupapa based in Wairoa here in Heretonga, Ahuriri and in Tamatea, and they actively reach out and coordinate through schools and regions to make that an accessible kaupapa.
Kia ora te Wairama, thank you for that response. Bridge Path School signed up there, so I'm quite pleased about that, given the fragile environment we live in out here in the water. I'm just asking how is these aligning to maybe the flood resilience plans, because there's a lot of resource being placed in there, and how do we use the data collected by our kids?
It is something I'll have to circle back on if that's okay for this committee.
Thank you. The next question is related to the tank new consents. There's just want some clarification around that wording. Is the new consents on hold, or is the uptake of the expired consents? Are they choosing to enter into the outcome of the Environment Court there?
Through you, Chair, all consent holders, water tank consent holders in tank, there was 1,000 approximately in total, were all placed on hold some years ago as mediation commenced in the Environment Court on the tank plan. Subsequent to and I say placed on hold, they were given Section 37 extensions, so timeframe extensions, and they are on 124, so they are allowed to operate with those consents, provided they applied for their new consents in that time. Subsequent to that, central government has introduced the consent hold, or consent stop, I should say, where anyone who has a consent operating on a 124 can continue to rely on that consent now out to 2031. And so that number, I believe, in the report is referring to the total number of consents that we have on operating under Section 124. The 110 consents that have been issued are in operation. They are not under a 124. So that refers to the remainder.
Thank you for that, Katrina. It was just a bit, I just needed some clarification around that. So thank you for that clarification. So it's not actually new applicants, it's the current applicants that are applying for the rollover of the expiry.
Correct.
Cool, thank you. And my final question is around, in that area is around what is the compliance increase? What is that in the marine space? What's attributed to that increase there? Is it the flash new jet boat or?
Through you, Chair, sorry, can I just question which measure you're looking at, which page?
The marine, sorry. Just an admin thing, just for ease of referencing. When we do these, can we just put the numbers on the overall activity so that when we're referring, we can go from Section 1, Section 2 when we're going through the paperwork? Sorry, it's just an admin thing because, that's how my brain thinks.
I'm not quite sure which performance measure you're referring to,
under
Laura.
marine services.
Maritime
Maritime
safety, or
maritime safety, yes. What's the reason for the increase in compliance there?
I'm still uncertain as to which measure I'm referring. I can't find that.
Sorry, I'll just flick through it. I'll get there. Maritime safety. So there was an increase on page 45. Sorry, a decrease. Sorry, of total incidences. Is that, sorry, not an increase, a decrease of reported incidences. What's that contribution? What do you think contributed to that decrease in incidences of maritime support? I know there's no specific number, but the graph shows a decline in the incident rate. I think that's a good measure. That's what I'm saying.
So these are maritime incidents that are reported to Maritime New Zealand. The reason the 25-26 results are not completed is because we have yet to receive those from Maritime New Zealand. They forward them to us. There has been a decreasing trend, you're correct, on maritime incidents over the last few years, and in particular Hawke's Bay, we have focused on our high risk areas of incidents. That is your teenage to middle-aged males heading out to sea in small vessels without proper life preserving measures. And so we have maintained a key focus on that as education programs for Hawke's Bay. I can unofficially confirm that we have had a decrease in the number of incidents in Hawke's Bay, but those numbers are yet to be confirmed by MNZ.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Katrina. I'm very pleased to see this decrease happening in our waters, and thank you to our harbour master for his efforts in that space.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. I guess the last one is on 4, integrated catchment management, and also linking back to our civil scientists within our enviro schools. What does that monitoring program actually look like when we look at the percentage of process monitoring? Because what I understand around that program is that these are the things that the kids are actually testing. If we look at section 3, for me, I'm just like, what are we doing with this data, and can we have monitoring done through that enviro skills?
Through you, Chair, tēnā koutou katoa ko Chitwaikon tōku wangua. So this environmental information, it relates to that all data was collected, and the measure was the time that it actually took to process the data. And so the information collected is from our telemetry network and our surface and groundwater monitoring sites. And then this is made available to a number of different parts of the organisation. So not only the public website or the public access to that information, which would be the pathway by which our enviro schools would get access to that information, but also to other parts of the organisation like compliance, consenting, land management, biodiversity, biosecurity, asset management, and so forth. So the underperformance is not in the volume of information collected, it was the time that it actually took to process. So we haven't lost any of it. It's just that we've taken time to process it.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for answering my queries. A really comprehensive report, whānau, although there's a few X's in there for some discussion points. Kia ora, Chair.
Thank you. Jock.
Circling back briefly to Lagoima, given the increase in volume and complexity, can you give us a steer as to what that equates to in staff numbers in dealing with the increase?
Desi, and one, we do keep track. We have a register that keeps track of all the requests that come in, and then obviously the who contributes and how long it takes for us to respond. But I'm not sure we're still measuring people hours or FTE.
We are.
Yeah. Oh, we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, yes, we are.
Through the organisation performance report, we get a bit more information because we break it down by group, where the information requests get action by the policy and regulation group. So we know where those requests are going to and who's answering them. And I think for the last year, maybe a little bit longer than that, we've been recording the amount of staff hours that are spent on Lagoima requests, and that's put in our quarterly report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can expect to see that in court.
Yeah, that comes out in the quarterly report. The measure in this is more around our timeliness in responding, but the quarterly report gives a lot more information, I think, and who's receiving the requests and how long it's taking us to do. And we're looking at improvements to get more information and encourage staff to record their time. We've got a special code that they can code their time to for Lagoimas.
Councillor Roadley, sorry, waiting so long.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chair. Thanks, Sarah, for a really comprehensive report. I've got a couple of questions. I'd like to dig into. The first one is on page 36 around the carbon footprint. And so I'm just interested in, first I didn't quite understand the measures. So Sarah, could you just help me understand the scope 1 and scope 2 division there, and also why the 24-25 is the new baseline? And then I've got a follow-up question once I understand that. Thank you.
I will hope, I probably can't give you a comprehensive answer, but if you look at the commentary for the last annual report, it gives an explanation to why we included a wider scope 3. From the top of my head, it's because we included our top 10 external contractors around, for example, like GoBus. So we pulled their data into the report. So that comes under scope 3. We had a very limited scope 3 last time, and we re-baselined it by doing those top 10 suppliers, which is why it looked like it went up. But it's the first time we were capturing that. So going forwards, we're going to always have our top 10 suppliers carbon footprint in the report. I can't give you the answer about what's in scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I think we'll need somebody technical to answer that. So I wouldn't want to give it a go.
Fair enough. And so what you're saying is that that new baseline is just more comprehensive and includes all our sort of subby-contractors and whatnot.
It is. And if you recall in our auditor summary, they always give an emphasis a matter around this, how we calculate the scope, and it isn't just us; it's across all councils. The measuring of these scopes is still to be, I don't know, verified or determined. But we always get an emphasis of matter, which is why we've included more of a scope 3 into the report to sort of help audit look at our work more comprehensively. So it's in response to audit.
Cool. And so I know that this work used to be covered under the Climate Action Joint Committee, and that has since been dissolved. And I know we've got some key staff member in there that is away currently on leave. How are we still how is this work still being continued and monitored as an organisation?
This measure's always been covered within our corporate support team, because it's about our fuel use, it's about our electricity and use of that. So they provide the data. We supply the data to an organisation called ECOS, who does the calculations for us, and it is independently audited by another external organisation. So the report that we get is comprehensive, but that information is supplied by our corporate support team. So it actually wasn't done by our climate action ambassador.
Right. And I just wanted to note that there's a sort of a perverse outcome through the Crown funding allocations around fuel, and that it's actually, we're incentivised both as councillors and presumably as council fleet as well, that you actually get paid far more as a diesel driver than as a electric or hybrid car. So that's just a little note, because you know that's my bugbear. So a general question. So this is a fantastic, I can see you smirking, Pip. About the report, as it obviously it always comes to us sort of discussing the previous year. By the time we see it, it's kind of albeit old news. When it comes through to council in a month's time as a completed report, how is where does in the cycle does it fall for us as governors to have any influence around those, what's in the report, the level of service, and how it's noted and how it's measured and reported? And the reason I'm asking that is I wanted to note that the ecological management and enhancement plants section in the report. So we've got, green lights, fantastic, 100% happy days. Do we just continue on that same trajectory, or do we go, let's bank that and move on to 3 more that might need more focus? Is that what's the principal rationale behind what we report and how we report it?
That's what it's part of the LTP process. So
This is, as you're right, we're always looking backwards in these reports, councillor Roadley. So, but going forward, this is where we revisit our levels of service and also our levels of service measures, which is what we're reporting here, to refine them and move the story on. So that is through that process that we do. We don't redefine our levels of service measure within that 3-year window normally, unless we have to adjust our levels of service.
So forward looking through the LTP preparations where we have an opportunity to review our LOSMs and what we measure. Some are mandatory and we have to measure a certain way, and others we have greater flexibility. But we would agree that in the LTP, and then they're fixed for the following 3 years.
So this will come.
So that will come through sort of the workshop process, is that right?
So, as you understand, we're doing a review of our levels of service currently through the workshops, and come October, we'll be coming back again with more firmed up budgets, and we will look at our levels of service measures and maybe have a range of them, and that's where we'll workshop where we want to land on them according to budget and resourcing and expectations. But that's a decision for council.
Because I think we will see a dramatic difference if we keep these same measures from last year to the current year, just given our reducing budget, reducing staff, and different pressures and priorities. So I'll welcome that as we go through that process. Thanks, Sarah. I really enjoyed the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Conrad.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just going to that page 24 and point 5. Headline results is, and then we're looking at that 55 levels of service measured, and then we had 12 that were not achieved, and then the 7 measures that are still awaiting. And we look at our risk to the council. What are the most, the greatest risks that we see there around our auditing, our service deliveries, reputational activities for the council?
Are you okay if I answer this, CE? Yeah, I think probably the key risks are probably around our asset management program, and they're the ones that we've yet to measure, because one of them is a mandatory measure about maintaining our flood infrastructure as well.
And so to point out the key measures there, we bundle both maintenance and capital delivery together, and generally we meet our maintenance measure. And quite often capital is delivered, albeit late, and it's based on a cash flow set in the last LTP. For example, our NIWI program, most projects are now in construction. Our Crown Administrator is satisfied with progress, but we report late against the cash flow that was set in the LTP. And there's no middle ground. It's quite a binary green or orange. And so we can consider the best way to bundle them going forward, but to maybe separate, operations from capital, because they're quite different beasts in their delivery.
Anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Kia ora, Sarah. So this is more of a trend question, not as trendy as Councillor Whitewell's new glasses are.
Very smart.
With the overall achievement dropping 11%, around 11% year on year, and we've heard Richard talk about ICM and the reasons why that underperformance has happened. So which of the 12 not achieved measures are a repeat, in misses from 24-25, and what specific corrective actions has all management commit to take before the next quarter or before October's final report?
I think we need to take that off.
Yeah, and an email can, that's sufficient.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Louise, have you found your?
I found it. And rookie mistake, I should have just kept going, really. But I had to find it. So mine is page 42 around compliance. And I wondered what determines high risk compared to other? My first bit of the question.
I'll let Katrina answer that one.
Thank you, Chair. You're talking about the monitoring of consents, is that right, on page 42?
Yes.
Yeah, so all of our consents are ranked based on their level of risk. I don't have that ranking to score, but we do have high risk consents. Those are generally the discharge consents because of the risk they pose to the environment.
Right, thank you. And so out of the consents, like 3675 consents, 3539 were compliant, 12 non-compliant, which is obviously being dealt with. There's a shortfall of 124. Does that mean they haven't been monitored? Not reported?
Sorry, 3,675 consents were monitored.
Yeah, and out of that,
Yeah.
3,539 were compliant. So that's a shortfall of 136, but out of that 136, 12 were non-compliant. So what happens with the other 124?
That were non-compliant?
That's what I'm trying to understand. Yeah. Yep. Is that because they weren't monitored? Reported?
So 3,675 consents have been monitored. 3,539 have achieved full compliance. That means they've met all their consent conditions.
Yeah.
Those that haven't met the consent conditions will have had enforcement action taken against them. So there's 12 there. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then others will have been given an opportunity to meet compliance, or the compliance was a low-level non-compliance and didn't warrant enforcement action. Enforcement action is only taken where that is warranted. So we don't take enforcement action against every non-compliance.
So the 12 were enforcements and the others were just not.
Because they were significant non-compliances.
Okay.
So we have significant non-compliance, moderate non-compliance, and then low-level non-compliance or low-risk non-compliance. So the moderate and low-level non-compliances are generally, for example, if somebody's operating a bore, they need to provide some reporting, and that reporting might be late. So that is registered as a low-risk non-compliance, but we wouldn't take enforcement action against that.
Okay, that's cool. So that's probably what my question was around, was that they are still being covered, because I just wondered if, yeah.
Through you, Chair, maybe I can go back to the person who supplied that commentary to provide a little bit more information about what that means for the non-compliance, sort of summarising what Katrina said, just for understanding.
Yeah, because I have a thing with the percentages. Like, to me, 100% is good, which leads me to my next question, which is about the telemetry. When it's 98%, that's still 2% that I don't know what happened to that 2%. So that was probably my next question, is in the telemetry, what is that 2%?
So Chair, can I just go back to the compliance? Just to be clear, there's 3 measures there. And the measure that we are 100% on is the enforcement action taken against significant non-compliance. So those 12 that were recorded significant non-compliance had enforcement action taken against them. The team are currently preparing the annual compliance report. So rather than going back to the team just for that, I think we wait. There'll be a whole lot of detail that will come through in the annual compliance report that gets presented to council as well. More than happy for it to come come to FAIR as well if that's required.
Right. I think we've given this a fair going over.
Can I just get my question answered about the telemetry, please?
Correct. So the question was 98%. And so there's obviously up to 2% unavailable. Why is that? That was the question. So Richard, I think, was coming up, or part of it is just general outages during maintenance and those sorts of things. So it's almost impossible to have a 100% availability of that sort of infrastructure. And if there was concern about that target, that the LTP process is the place to address that.
Yeah, because that's why I'm wondering what is the target then? If 98% is achieved, that's
So
obviously
that
the
is our
target.
current target and it's readily exceeded.
Yeah,
So we're not trying to maximise downtime, we're trying to minimise downtime, and our current target is 80%, which we typically exceed.
Okay.
In terms of availability.
Right, so I will move the resolution for the committee to receive and note the interim levels of service results for the annual report for this year. Do I have a second? Thank you, Henny Y. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. That moves us on to 4.4, report on compliance with Treasury Policy, page 68.
Thank you, Chair. We'll have Talia come up and Tracy, who is unwell but online, to answer any questions.
Thank you.
So just to briefly introduce, this paper provides the committee's regular update on Council's Treasury activities in compliance with the Treasury Policy, particularly covering the period from 1st of April to 30 June 2026. Overall, Council remained compliant with the policy throughout this quarter, with debt, liquidity, funding and interest rate risk all within the required limits. At 30 June, the external debt was 143.2 million, with Council maintaining a strong liquidity position. And the main area to note is the ongoing pressure created by the NIWI program, with reimbursements from Crown expected to result in additional short-term borrowing and potentially some breaches of the normal debt treasury policy. The committee has previously agreed that these breaches can occur during the NIWI program, with Treasury monitoring and reporting back on these migrations. So in summary, there's no significant compliance concerns being reported at this point, but we will be continuing to monitor that shortfall from the NIWI.
Thank you. Good report. Any questions? Sophie.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you, Talia. I know the NIWI reimbursement issue keeps raising its head. I thought that had got into a good cycle. You're not suggesting here that the time period has changed. We're in that same cycle where reimbursements happening within that 6 weeks or whatever it is.
I'll revert to Tracy on this one, please.
The standard is that it will be reimbursed in that period. We have got a short period currently where the portal is actually closed, so we can't actually load any claims to NIWI for the next. I think it's due to open hopefully by mid-September, I think. So in the interim, what they've done is we've loaded as many of the reimbursements as we could prior to the portal closing, and they have paid all bar 4 million of those to us. So the idea is that basically the HEF facility or the revolving credit facility is there as a just in case they delay anything. It's not costing us anything extra because it basically replaces the standby facility, but it actually does gives us more flexibility for those just in case situations.
Just a follow-up, Chair, if that's all right. So I understand, obviously it's not costing us anything because we haven't drawn it down, but I am confused as to why we've cancelled the standby with LGFA, because that's always at a lower percentage. Why have we dropped that standby and gone to ANZ?
The standby facility requires us to draw down funds and hold them for 1 month, which means that we would carry that debt for an entire month. The revolving credit allows us to do it on a daily basis. So that is the rationale as to why we've moved to a revolving credit rather than a standby facility.
Perfect. Thank you.
Conrad. Thank you, Chair. Just carrying on from that. So what would our trigger points be for bringing a Treasury breach or near breach back to this committee? If we look at the NIWI program and point 18 there. Well, actually it goes back to 0.678 and then 1718. So what are the trigger points that would bring that back to us?
Because we are using
Okay.
the NIWI program and that revolving credit facility.
To be honest, to date, we haven't used the revolving credit facility. We're constantly monitoring the type of debt that we have, whether it be long-term or short-term. It's the 0 to 3 year bucket, which is where we've got our most concern around. And that would be us either taking a short-term commercial note, which would be generally for 3 to 4 months if we believe that there's a timing difference coming up with our ability to be able to load claims for the NIWI program and get them accepted through their portal. The revolving credit will be where we've got outstanding invoices that are known, and therefore we're waiting for them to accept them and actually process them. Should we monitor obviously the funding buckets on a daily basis, and should there be any trigger or any suggestion that there will be an exception coming up, we should be able to identify and advise you in advance.
Thank you, Trace.
No more questions? Oh, Josh.
Points 35, cost of funds, just so point of clarity there. So the average cost of funds is 3.34%, and the net cost comes down to 2.19% when you take into account swaps and term deposit pre-funding. So that's pretty good. And I just think it's interesting to look at that number relative to our next paper and income we get off our investments, albeit that was a pretty good year. But it's a good point to note in the context of best use of money.
Point taken. If there are no more questions, I'll move the resolution that the committee receives and notes a report on compliance with Treasury Policy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Sophie. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. HBRIC quarterly update. Welcome. Morning.
I do this every time. Any hints?
I think it's a second screen.
So, okay.
You got it on your PC, but it's not on the screen. Probably.
Okay.
No one's brave enough to
Can you
help
do
you,
that?
Tom,
Yeah.
because we all have the
Got a
same
macro.
problems.
Louise.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Yeah. That's just our technology.
Two on the screen. Louise asked us to play for time so she could take a bio break. So
Thank you so much for not making that
turn it
public.
on, just switch it on.
Welcome, Debbie, our chair of HBRIC. We haven't seen you actually in chamber this training. Thank you for driven over from Topeka.
I have indeed, thank you.
Through the
It's a
snow?
pleasure to be here. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'll just wait for Tom to get the slide up, but no, it's great to be here. I'm hoping this is going to lift the mood a little bit because we're presenting a very positive report, and Tom tells me it's probably the best quarterly report that in recent times. So
He would though.
Yeah.
You've talked it up now. Crikey.
Yeah.
Just before LTP.
Gosh, technical problems.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, right. Well, thank you for having us. This is going to be quite straightforward. You've got, the meeting pack, and we're probably just going to put 2 or 3 slides up and speak to those. But just before we start, I just want to say that, in the 3 years that I've been involved in HBRIC, not all as chair, by the way, I took over from Dan last year, we have seen tremendous progress in HBRIC, and a lot of it started with the strategic review before I joined. So it really just goes back to council and conducting that review and making the changes that have actually led to where we are today. So it's something to really congratulate yourselves for, because I don't think this kind of performance is common across the market, across the country. Well, I don't know, Auckland might be a bit different, but I think it's exceptional for a number of reasons, and I'll talk about that now. If we just go to the first slide. So our year to date is unaudited, but 16 million. We're way ahead of budget. Our budget was 9.8, and distributions to council, of course, have been pretty healthy. And in fact, over the last few years, it's been reasonably good. Hopefully, they'll get better over time. And our assets have also grown in terms of value. It's not apparent here, but we will actually come back with better reporting on cash and non-cash contribution or attribution to performance. Our managed funds have grown. I don't know what they were a couple of years ago, but they weren't at 200. They might have been 150, 160, something like that from memory. And we've now got a dividend resilience reserve, which is really important because we need to make sure that we have at least 12 months of dividend to provide to you should the markets tip over. Markets aren't always going to go up. There'll be volatility, and in fact, I'm expecting a reversion to the mean or a correction in the next wee while. So I think the year going forward is probably going to be quite challenging. It's very hard to predict these things, so that's why you want sort of diversification in the portfolio. So the attribution to the result comes from not just moving our risk profile from a balanced risk profile to growth, but also from the performance of the port. So the port has recovered from Cyclone Gabriel. It has done quite well in replacing volume that was lost because of closure of different businesses in the Hawke's Bay, which everybody knows about, forestry, McCain's, etc. So volumes have been maintained, which is a very good achievement in a market that's actually a bit sort of soggy. So the port's delivered a stronger dividend. Results look quite good. The 9-month results for the year were good and publicly reported, and we're coming up to year end. So there's nothing of any concern at the moment, but of course you just don't know with, you've got the sort of Strait of Hormuz still closed, you've got the war in, Ukraine still ongoing. There's all sorts of other externalities that could potentially have an impact over the next wee while. Go to the next slide. So just to remind you about group distributions, so the last 2 years it's been quite high, 48 million in total is what we've paid. This coming year, we're budgeting, well, we're yet to budget for next year, but I just want to sort of flag that we probably can't maintain that kind of level of distribution. We're not to expect it because the port's done well to date. Our managed funds have performed extremely well, but markets go up and down. So just sort of don't want to don't want your expectations to be too high. So where do the returns come from? You can see that 13.8 last year for Napier Port and a bit higher for this year. We've got rental income that's from Wellington Properties, which has always been quite low. You've already approved a a managed sell down of those properties. That was just recently. Managed funds have done extremely well. That's because markets globally have done well, but also some of the attribution to that has got to do with a weak New Zealand dollar. So when you've invested in the US and you translate it back, it's you've got this outperformance due to currency. And we've got our capital protection reserve as well. So all up, we've got a 14% return on our portfolios and about a 7% return on Napier Port to date.
Yeah, it hasn't paginated very well, but I think sometimes there's a focus on how much cash comes out against the total capital of the portfolio, and what this is not showing well through a poor selection of colour is, the total return, when you think about the port and change in value of the port, actually is quite different, but that can go both ways, and it's the nature of the port ownership being a strategic asset. It's the value of the port is of information value primarily, probably good for your balance sheet and good for your treasury reporting, but so it's probably important not to just think of the return in terms of the cash distribution, because it does do other work in terms of inflation protection and lifting reserves on your balance sheet.
I think this might be a good place to pause and just, if there are any questions. Any?
Thank you. Any questions?
Probably Phoebe or Tom, the returns on our managed funds, do you know what they would have been in old settings?
As well, probably around 7 or 8.
Okay, so that's a really interesting point, I think, for us to note. So the changes we made 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, to a more aggressive stance on managed funds.
Yep.
Broadly speaking, in the current climate, we achieved 14% this time. Probably would have been about half that had we not made those changes.
Yeah. It's actually more complex than that, actually. So there's varying performance metrics around the various fund managers because they all have a different approach to market. Some are much more conservative because they see real risk with war, disruption to supply chains, and so some have got a much more conservative approach to investing. Others, like JB Ware, Goldman Sachs, more aggressive because they're American, and they kind of probably have more research and better research in the US than others. So it's got a lot to do with style as well. So it's one thing that HBRIC's going to look at now is reviewing the style. Have we got the right style? Have we got diversification of style within the manager that we've chosen? Because style makes a difference as well.
Broadly speaking, though, if you think that we are a very long-term investor, then our decision to be more growth-oriented in the way we operate is appropriate.
Absolutely. And in fact, I would suggest that we could probably be more aggressive because that SIPO really only covered managed funds. Now, if we did a SIPO on everything and the whole risk profile of everything that we manage, it actually is still very conservative and we could probably go higher in terms of risk settings. i.e. more growth. Because if you look at Napier Port, it's not really a growth asset, and it makes up a big proportion of our portfolio. So in simple terms, we've got a $400 million asset delivering 14 million, and we've got a $200 million managed fund delivering the same. You know, if you look at it sort of simply like that. So what we want is obviously 400 delivering 14. That would probably what we would aim to do in the future.
Thank you.
So I think, you know, we've been really busy as a company just getting ourselves in a position where we're operating to best practice. We have one more policy document that we need to get finalised and approved by you, and that's our distribution policy. This will complete the governance documents that guide how we make decisions. So, you know, we've got the SIPO for managed funds, which needs to be reviewed as well. So we get an overarching SIPO, SOE and SOI, and the distribution policy, and that guides our decision making going forward, and also guides the performance of, you know, how we decide on how you allocate capital, or investment capital is really important to delivering, you know, high returns. So that's where we're moving in that direction. Tom's going to speak to the website, which I don't know if you've looked at, but we've refreshed our website. We're just kind of lifting our profile so people kind of know who we are.
I'm happy to. There's a new website.
Just before you do, I just wonder whether it's worth framing this next little bit in terms of the current reform process and where HBRIC, what actions HBRIC is taking in regard to responding to a reform environment. Is that worth discussion pre or post your delivery, Tom?
Well, I think this we were always, you know, looking to and continuous improvement, re-professionalise across, you know, documentations. You know, we've done a full revamp of our corporate policies. You know, we've moved on to governance tool platforms, and you know, we've got independent CFOs and all that sort of carry on. This website is just effectively, you know, about raising the profile of the company in terms of, so that, because we've always been effectively, you know, just reporting to you, and it may be in the future, I don't know, you know, that there may be different shareholders or something like that. So I think we're just making sure that people understand who we are and what we do. And I think that's as far as I can take that. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I don't really propose to walk you through a website. It's pretty easy to find. Although I could bring the director's pictures up if that would be. Yeah, that'd be great. That would be good.
Maybe we could just hand over to you, Neil and Sophie, to make any comment you wish to make as councillor directors of HBRIC. You know, this might be a good opportunity.
Well, I'll start. Okay. In terms of profiling and, if you like, the part of the rationale for being out there, being visible and demonstrating what HBRIC has done in its performance, it is and is connected to inevitably with the reform agenda, and it's important that the region understands fully what HBRIC does, and what it can achieve in its current state, and given a license to go forward, rather than being distributed around the region, which would be a huge mistake economically for the region. So yes, we would have a desire to be out there and be visible, be known, but it's equally doubled down on because we've got this environment that we need to front and be seen and be protective of the assets. And it comes back to, if you like, good governance. If our goal really is to protect those assets and grow them, then we need to consider the political environment in which they rest. So I think that goes with the territory of
Mhm.
generally, creating more public awareness. That'd be fair.
Yeah, I think so. And, really acknowledging Susie Young, who really drove that early strategic change. And you're quite right, Debbie, that was the pivotal point. And I think it was predicated on really there's no excuse for a council with funds not to be managing those at the very best, in the very best way for the very best return. It's really incumbent on a council to look after its ratepayers' assets as a professional manager would. And, the results really speak for themselves, as you say, on that. And I think really what Neil's alluding to is that while these might be Hawke's Bay Regional Councils or Hawke's Bay ratepayers' funds, the structure and the professionalism of what this is delivering is well suited to be a vehicle for the future of the region in terms of assets and delivery on or return on assets. And the website, you being more visible now, Debbie, you being in contact with the other regional leaders, with iwi partners, that's really the place if we want the region to return the very best on the enormous amount of assets that we have here. It's going to be pivotal for our future. We know the costs that are coming. Reimagining rivers, $500 million. It's just one piece of resilience for the region. It's going to be pivotal that we maintain this level of professionalism. So, but we really acknowledge you. We know that what you've brought to HBRIC has really lifted the game, and our other independent directors. So yeah, look, congratulations is the core really.
Well, we're all part of the same team, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, so in our next board meeting, we will be looking at an engagement strategy, and we'll be approving some wording around that. I think we do need to raise awareness, and it's good to talk about positive results. So I think the timing is really good at the moment. September and leading into Christmas. I don't really, we're not involved in the political sphere, but making people aware of who we are and what we do is important. What the future looks like is anybody's guess, but we're just going to continue to work to the mandate that you've given us. So until we're told otherwise, so that's the approach. And I can't imagine that there will be a time where we will be split up, but who knows? We just go forward as if we sort of stay intact. Anyway, I just wondered if there were any other questions around our performance.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you, Debbie and Tom. Just back to your comment, Debbie, around the 14% gains on, I guess, the bigger asset portion and into the future. Has HBRIC taken any steps or any planning to change that balance?
Well, what we want to do is sell down our the properties that you've already given us the mandate with Wellington, and reinvest those funds into managed funds to actually increase that pool. So the 200 million at 14% would be great if we could, increase it to 400 million. We've got the port over there, which will do, if it continues to do well, 7%, probably okay. So yeah, that's the plan. That's the short term strategy is to dispose of the properties as best we can and reinvest those funds. Because we need liquidity, and I kind of think about it also as not just an endowment, that it's also an insurance fund. Should there be other weather events, if funding's required for the port, for example, something happens and they need capital. We are 55% shareholder, so if they needed additional capital in the future, where do they go? The first place you go is your shareholder. So we just need to be mindful of the longer term picture as well. And ports, as you've probably seen, are very capital hungry. Because there's this you need to replace the assets over time. So there'll be some lumpy pieces of capital required for various things. So You know, we've got to think long term.
Laura, you've got a question.
Kia ora. So I guess this leads back to 4.3 around governance, and you may not be able to answer this, but given the changes in how we appoint our committees, what's the foresight there around the makeup of the board?
Well, we have 3 independent directors at the moment, of which I am one, and 2 councillor directors, and it's up to really the council to decide how they want the board to look. We've gone from no independence to now a majority of independence, and I think that formula is not one I would suggest changing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, at least there's some thinking around it, given that the target was Māori representation, but it's actually council-wide in all our boards.
Evie, can you just tell the committee how far above the capital protection watermarks the funds are sitting at the moment, please?
So I think it's paragraph
20 million.
I think it's, I want to say 20, but.
it's come from a long way behind. I mean, look, this has been.
So what page is that on?
Let me say.
I mean, in our papers.
76.
Thank you.
Paragraph 19.
Yeah, 18. Just above the last paragraph of Napier Port Holdings. But I mean, sorry, and it was on the slide deck. Disconnected. But yeah, we've come from. I mean, to Jock's earlier point, there was a period post IPO where the managed funds were very conservatively set and were earning. I think there was some independent work done, 2.5% through that period. And then, then markets fluctuated, so we actually fell quite a way below capital protection watermarks. But because we've been able to meet council's cash requirements outside of the managed funds, we've been able to build those buffers back up again. And so they're now sitting relatively healthily above. And again, I mean, I think this points to, a good distribution policy will make sure that you kind of think about that, and so you're not over saving, but then also not grabbing everything when it's there 1 year and then falling back below the line there. So that level of sophistication really helps everyone.
And we will invest some time in changing our reporting, because we need to. It's always easier to look at percentages as opposed to absolute dollar amounts, because it's all relative. So I think that we'll be doing some work on that. So it will look a bit clearer to you when we report to you.
Thank you. Just to pick up, look, you don't need to answer. It's a bit of a drop-in question, but we did have a health and safety update this morning around director responsibility, and particularly looking at the Ports of Auckland decision. And I made the point that the port reports to the HBRIC board, and that I would take back to the board picking up of that, how we're dealing with those responsibilities, and a feedback here. So you might want to make a comment on how we're approaching that, or whether it's just a flag that it's a discussion we've had here this morning.
As an investment company, we have no direct liability under health and safety for activities at the port. There will be the PCBUs sit within the port and the board of the port. So neither the council nor HBRIC has any liability in terms of the Health and Safety Act, unless that changes in the future, and I don't think it will. So most listed companies, which Napier Port is, are very cognizant of risk around health and safety, because you cannot insure that liability. So every single director is liable should something happen and there aren't the appropriate policies and processes in place and proper, due diligence done. So for a board director, for example, we have to visit the port. We go through quite a rigorous program of making sure we are aware of all the health and safety hazards, processes, policies, people. They report on KPIs, so it's very comprehensive, actually. So I don't think there's anything for anyone to be concerned about. But of course, anything can happen out of left field, and accidents do happen. But the Napier Port record has been pretty good. This is not like Auckland, for example, which is much, much bigger.
Thank you.
Accepting that there is no liability, there's still an exposure to reputational damage. So I think the question more is, are the directors of HBRIC satisfying themselves that the processes and systems in Port of Napier are being complied with as they say they are?
Yes, in fact, we had a board meeting yesterday and we spent some time on this. We just about all the board attends health and safety subcommittee meetings. And we have a work program and we have a meeting program and a program for every director to attend safety meetings. So it's incumbent on each individual director to attend those meetings. So if something had happened and you were under the spotlight, you need to be able to prove that you were satisfied. And there is no reason, for me anyway, that I can see that there's any issues. But it's a constant, you have to continually work at it, and it's, you've got to make sure you don't get stale. So we've recognised you can get stale because it's the same program all the time. So we try and change it up so that we do different things. And we're always looking at what other ports are doing as well to make sure that what we're doing, we're keeping up with any new development in that area. So I feel quite satisfied and quite happy to, we could get, the port in to talk to it, but I'm pretty satisfied. We spend a lot of time discussing and making sure our minutes capture the discussion as well, because that's quite important when you kind of look back later, something happens. Were we aware of an issue? So some of the KPIs we have are around, for example, if there is an incident, time to address it. It has to be done in a timely fashion. I've been on many boards where there's been all sorts of problems, and that's always something that is quite a focus for me.
My concern is just HBRC has a far higher profile than HBRIC.
Yes.
And HBRC would be the party that would get the finger pointed at them. So we need to just be satisfied that that's not going to be a problem. Thank you. If there are no more questions, thank you very much for your presentation and your attendance.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Happy to move the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. And I'll second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Yes, we're running late.
Yeah.
Is lunch here? I think we've been sitting for 2 hours and I think we deserve a break. So that's it. Appropriate time to stop and have lunch. Can I ask that we shorten the lunch break so that we can try and make up some of this time that we've got behind? Is the committee comfortable to do that?
Yep.
Can I suggest 20 minutes? Okay, see you back at 20 past. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
We're at paper 4.6, which is an update on the insurance renewal process. I'll invite Talia and Tracy to present this paper, but casting your minds back to the decision made previously, which was our the approach to the insurance renewal process for this financial year was rollover with sensible adjustments. We're now in that process, and this is an update on where things are at. Okay, I'll pass over.
Thank you. So just to note, there's still a number of matters to be resolved before the insurance renewal can be finalised. We need the final premiums and terms, confirmation from Aon and the underwriters that the revised MDBI approach won't affect council's ability to claim, business interruption cover, excesses or supplements, and the adequacy of an infrastructure cover. So it is progressing as expected, but there are just some further details to clarify. Thank you.
Right, questions?
Let me just check, sorry, I might just check. Tracy, did you have anything further you wanted to add before we open the floor? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah,
It helps. Sorry, apologise for that. I'm hitting the button. Yeah. Just wish to update you on the infrastructure schedule. The breakdown that we actually had in there is actually showing incorrect values for classifications. The schedule that we prepared for insurance purposes uses different classification purposes than what we use internally. So it makes it look like the stock banks are only 100 million, where in actual fact they are actually 287 million, I think it is. So the classification interpretation doesn't speak well to what we use internally. So I just wanted to just point that out.
Thanks, Tracy.
Questions? I have some. Page 89.11 says the market is tightening. Every other council I've been to this year has found the exact opposite. Can you explain that situation that HBRC now find themselves in?
If you note on point 14, since the May update, we're actually advising the markets have now softened. And therefore, I had a sit down with the Aon brokers in the last month, and they've advised that the market is very receptive at the moment to insurance. They're expecting premiums to reduce, although they will be offset by obviously the increased costs from FENS. So we are actually expecting a far more competitive market this year, which is one of the reasons that we've actually taken the opportunity to go out and look at potentially moving some of our assets off the MDBI policy and putting them on other policy or separate policies with lower excesses, should that be cost effective and yeah, in the long term, give us a better return.
So by the MDBI, you refer to what I would know as the LAP scheme.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just not familiar with the LAP's an old term that we don't kind of use very often. So
Sorry, but most councils are still using it. They don't call it MDBI.
okay.
Insurance.
Yeah. So that's the business the material damage business interruption policy. Yes.
On page 90, what's open space mean? Worth 3 million.
That is generally our parks and reserves. So it'll be all the structures that are in the parks and reserves. Things like the Waitangi Park also includes the big memorial and the big celestial. Sorry, I can't think of the word of it at the Waitangi Park, but it's mainly the structures that we have at the open spaces.
Thank you.
Item 14, I was just wondering how the asset value, the insurance replacement asset value is reduced by 78 million because you've changed the way you measure it somehow. Just wondering if you could talk to that.
Last year, when we did insurance renewals, we were in the middle of a whole lot of development, and the asset management team were working very, very heavily within the asset work in progress criteria, I suppose you'd call it. A lot of the assets were being either repaired or replaced or that type of thing. So we were unable to actually give a very good breakdown to the insurance company of what the value would be. So we had to estimate what we thought our insurance cover would be last year. This year, the asset team have they've gone through a robust process, and they've been able to actually quantify for insurance purposes what the cover we would require on each type of asset. So the actual value is actually less than what we estimated last year. We felt last year it was important to estimate rather than and potentially be over rather than under.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, thank you, Chair. Just on page, it's at executive summary number 3 there, and it looks at the updated infrastructure replacement value at 346 million compared to last prior 424 million. Before the renewal term finalised, how will this committee be assured that the lower infrastructure value does not leave the council under-insured or exposed to any claimabilities?
So what's currently happening is that the Aon are using, the brokers are taking that cover and adding it into the group policy and sending it to market. Before we go and finalise, we'll go back internally and do a robust reconciliation with the asset management team to ensure that we have the values correct and make any adjustments before renewal if it's necessary.
I think it's fair to say there's a level of uncertainty on that number, and particularly that $100 million number. So that's something that we need to verify.
So how did the previous year's number compare with the previous year to that? Because I just find it nonsensical that there could have been that much a reduction in assets unless it was a significant overvaluation in the previous year.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, there needs to be a review of that table. So the 100 million number does not correlate to the current value of that asset. So we need to just take that away and review that table to ensure we've got the correct numbers in them.
So really, we've got a lot of uncertainty in this paper, and we should really park it. Because
I think that, sorry, Chris, I was going to say, I think that the purpose of this was to show that the renewal is a work in progress. Market conditions have changed. We've now got a far more robust process for valuations, which is good, but as we've acknowledged, that is in flight and still need a second pass. However, given the timeframes, we had to get draft schedules into Aon. I think from memory it was the 31st of July. So we were being quite driven by Aon's timeframes to go to market. So work in progress, market conditions are improving for us. Our ability to calculate what we need to ensure is also improving based on better data, but also our claims experience from the cyclone. It's sort of painting the picture for the story that will be told next year.
Chair, thank you. Thanks, Pip and Tracy. Just around timing of decisions and how that intersects with the LTP. Could you just draw us a picture around that, please?
Sure. So, Tracy, can you give an update on when this policy needs to be finalised?
So all renewals are due to be placed by the 1st of November. So we've got a little bit of time in there. So the idea is that we would spend our time over the next 6 weeks as we place this and all the other policies into the market. And then for this renewals, the work on the longer term strategy for the LTP program is a whole separate set of work, because we're going to reframe and look at every asset type completely again. And we've got some external consultants to assist us with that. So that will then form the basis of what insurance goes into the LTP.
And just secondary, please, Chair. If I may just add a secondary, have we completely ruled out self-insurance?
No.
No. Okay.
For this renewal, yes, because the strategy was rolled over with sensible adjustments. But for the longer term strategy, self-insurance remains an option on the table, and we intend to bring back to Fair or Council, depending where it sits most logically, what those options are, the affordability of those, and the risk appetite that you're prepared to take on.
Laura.
Kia ora, you may have worked through it in terms of business continuity insurance policy, but I'd wondered if, because I don't have the policy in front of me, if cybersecurity is included in there, and whether or not you've had a fine comb through cybersecurity around excluding products from the USA and Canada in that policy.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Laura. Yes, we continue to look at cyber and as to whether or not it is a good option for us. The decisions of the past have been to not utilise cyber insurance for a number of reasons. The first is around balancing cost and risk. We have a very robust cyber security program internally that is externally endorsed and audited. And the judgment to date has been that cyber would be an increased cost with very little added benefit. However, we ask the question each year and we continue to look at it.
Just additional to that, I just noticed in 4.3 again that there is issues with cyber.
If you could point me to the page number, I'm happy to respond.
I'll email it to you because I can't go through it at this time, but I did read there were some risks around cyber breaches and security there that you are trying to mitigate.
Yeah, absolutely. So we bring our ICT team generally to the FAIR meeting every alternate meeting to give a proper and robust cybersecurity update. They'll be presenting in November, but really happy to take out of sequence questions via email and respond back to the committee if there's anything specific you'd like addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the paper, Tracy and Pip. I was just looking at the CDEM piece, and obviously we are only looking to ensure our part of CDEM liability. You could nod, Tracy, and that would cover that. What I'm interested in is if we are exploring if there are any efficiencies or cost savings to be had with shared services with organisations such as CDEM, but also across our TAs when it comes to particularly the liability space, and if is that a valid way of thinking, or is it actually got no legs at all?
Well, it's got legs. I'll pass to Tracy to answer what we're doing in that space.
Okay. A lot of our policies are actually in a grouped anyway, depending on the type of policy. For example, the MDBI policy is grouped with other Hawke's Bay regional, Hawke's Bay councils, etc. Our liability policies are loosely grouped together already with other councils when they're taken to market, etc. We haven't actually explored conversations with the other regional, other Hawke's Bay councils with regards to liability. It is something that I could bring up in the next insurance forum and see what the appetite is for this, for some discussions around that.
Great. I think we're all looking for that little cost cutting. So maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. It'd be worth understanding.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just add a supplementary point in to that is around the impact that the waters entities are having on our insurance profile. So at the moment, our flood assets are, well, at the moment and in the past, our flood assets have been grouped with water assets in terms of their insurance. With water entities being set up, the indications are that those water assets will be lifted out of those shared group policies. That leaves flood assets on their own, and they are more difficult, more expensive, and less to insure and less attractive to the market. As a result of that, there are conversations underway with the River SIG, as I point to Chris beside me, as to how the broader sector can collaborate around insurance strategies, be it pooling of resources, be it self-insurance collectively. There's a number of conversations underway as to how we respond to that sort of change of asset allocation or change of asset ownership and the downstream implications it's had for councils.
Thanks, but would there be an alignment between bridges and stoppings?
Bridges are classed as structures, so they're actually on a different policy again. So it gets really convoluted as to whether it's classed as a building or whether it's classed as an infrastructure asset. So it's, yeah, at the moment they're on different policies and they've got different groups of councils.
Any more questions? No? The resolution is to this committee receives and notes the update on the insurance renewal process. Have a mover. Thank you, Niwai. Seconder. Thank you, Sophie. There's no further discussion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Harry, thank you very much. Moving on to 4.7 on page 94, the CDEM Group key activities update.
Afternoon, Chair, Committee. I would take this paper as read. We are, remind the committee that we are the administering authority for CDEM. This committee receives an update from the KEG and joint committee papers that go through that process. So that's largely what this paper is doing. Some highlights are really around the recruitment that the Civil Defence Emergency Management Office has undertaken. Since I last spoke with you, we have appointed a team leader planning, principal advisor assurance roles, transformation roles. We've also appointed the principal advisor Māori partnerships and principal advisor intelligence role. Our senior advisor information and public education role has recently become vacant and is out for final stages of recruitment, and the team leader community resilience role is also out. The Chief Execs Coordinating Group are meeting next week, and they will be receiving their first report from the Transformation Manager, as well as the Assurance Framework report. So we will have those to share with you once they've gone to KEG and Joint Committee. Just noting that there has been a report back from the Select Committee on the Emergency Management Bill. There are some significant changes there through Select Committee process, and I've outlined those in the report. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. I just want clarity. The title is referred to as Hawke's Bay CDEM Group Key Activities Update. I was on the assumption that this report or this paper, or if there's another paper, included the HBRC emergency management approach as well. So not only a CDEM report, but an HBRC emergency management consideration. Have I got that correct?
You have got that correct, Chair. Neil, and my apologies for not including that in the report this time. I simply ran out of bandwidth in this reporting period, given that I was acting CE, acting GM of asset management, and we had somebody stepping into the incident controller as an acting. I just simply ran out of bandwidth to provide you an update on our own emergency management business continuity. I will bring that next time.
Yeah, thank you, Trina, and job well done as in that the latest event. So thank you for that and your commitment to it. I wonder then, given we're still building this plane, whether we can expand somewhat on the report coming back from CDEM or consideration of the issues that are being looked at CDEM. For example, I'd be interested to know about the independent operational readiness assessment, whether that's been concluded, what is it saying, what's it telling us. I'm interested to learn more about the...
Through you, Chair, I can speak to that very briefly now if you would like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happy to hear.
Sorry, I can't quite see. The readiness assessment has been undertaken, and at a senior officer level, there is a subcommittee that reports up into KEG, and that is largely the GMs of the region responsible for civil defence emergency management in each of the councils. It includes regional council, but of course, I was missing at that meeting. And they shared in confidence, they shared their readiness assessment numbers or scores, and those are going to be reported up to KEG and Joint Committee. So that absolutely can come back to HBRC in terms of a report back.
And thank you for that. I'll just follow up very briefly in terms of the paper and the reporting. The transformation dashboard.
Yes.
As I understand that is available. It wasn't in the current paper, but it may have been an omission. So we can see that regularly coming through the paper and attached to the paper.
Through you, Chair, that does go to KEG and Joint Committee. If this committee would like to see that, I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, I think we need good line of sight on the program, given its nature being much more systemic than specific to CDEM.
I think, if I can, Chair, we did definitely talk about that, Katrina. I think we've just dropped that through our Chief Executive, who was also our Chief Executive of CDEM.
That's right.
I think we've just dropped a piece, but yeah, definitely this should be coming back every fair meeting, 100%. Yeah, that's the plan.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And I was just going to ask that same question that Neil did, so it'd be great to see, because I'm guessing the manager of transformation is the manager of this dashboard and that transformation work.
Yes. There is a manager of transformation, but it is very closely tied to the assurance framework. And so I'm happy to bring all of that back.
And just a follow-up question, please. In terms of 4.4, where it talks about the CDEM Group plan, is there any financial or extra financial need from this council to undergo that work?
Thank you, Chair. Ultimately, what we will need to start doing is built, it will come out of existing CDEM budgets. But going forward, there is conversations and presentations that will come from KEG up to the Joint Committee in terms of LTP funding. There's some core decisions that need to be made about rating. Do we continue to rate as we are as a region, or do we? And so those funding decisions absolutely do need to be made and need to go through the committees before coming back to each council.
Thank you.
Can I ask? Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Katrina. Well, first of all, just a comment. The emergency management bill and the korero around strengthening roles of iwi Māori and communities in the emergency management system. Appreciated that. Didn't expect anything less from Regional Council because we have strong co-governance in the system. The question I have though is around 4.3 and updated tsunami evacuation zone mapping and why it was just pertaining to Tonga or to Cape Kidnappers coastline only.
Yeah, forgive me, Chair. I'm not a specific expert on this, but I have some. There was that was the study area that was undertaken by GNS, is my understanding, some years ago. That has been since reviewed and has, in fact, resulted in a reduction in the number of properties. So that's why we are preparing for public release. But that research was done by GNS. I don't understand I know why it doesn't go beyond Tongoio. I can find out and come back to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, sure. No, not me.
I've got mine was just going back to funding. And this is a question probably from a ratepayer that brought it to my attention, and I just really want to understand it myself. So we charge on our rating civil defence, which I take it's for the whole region, for this particular, what our activities are. And then the TAs charge a charge as well. What are their activities outside CDEM? I mean, is that for things like resilient hubs?
So thank you. Through you, Chair, you'll recall that as a result of all of the reviews since Cyclone Gabrielle, there was, and part of the transformation program is to ensure that we have local delivery. And so the councils, the individual councils, not regional council, would be leading out on that community response and the welfare response. And so it is for the functions that the councils themselves must deliver that they rate for. And so they are busy as part of the transformation strategy. They are busy increasing their capacity and capability, and as a consequence will need to start increasing the rate recovery for those functions as well. Some of that is currently funded through the general rate. So there is a distribution currently from the general rate that HBRIC collects back to each of the councils. And that was committed for the 2 years until we did the new LTP. And those are the next conversations that need to be happening. So yes, you're correct. There is a regional rate, and that is for the group office. Yep. That is for HBCDMO, and that is for the coordination. The local rate is for the local delivery.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you.
All right.
Sure.
And just a question from that emergency management bill, point 10, and it has an enabling member emergency management committee to be co-opted. Any additional members that have the skills and attributes, etc., as associate members, is that done at the time of an emergency, or is that going to happen soon?
So that's talking about co-opting members onto, and I need to be careful here, but committees would be the chief executives group. I think it would be the joint committee, the regional joint committee.
Thank you. I need to know. Look, can I come do a circle again, Katrina, to the regional council's responsiveness? And I know there are a number of work streams in play, the assignment of the emergency management roles, the emergency response planning, incident management team, CDEM duty management. We've got we're flood risk assessment and warning, and that hazard research plan mentioned earlier. So a number of, if you like, work streams in play on the HBRC side. Is it possible to get a bit of get the line of sight on that, so that we've got, if you like, we're aware of the work streams and their progress? Is that something we can work on in terms of bringing back through this reporting process?
Through you, Chair, yeah, I agree. Yes, it is something that we can and should be doing. I think we need to clearly differentiate what it is that the group office is responsible for versus HBRC, and I appreciate that this paper doesn't get you there today. So I'm happy to do that, yes.
Thank you.
And Chair, if I may, is just to point out that the next paper is actually on the Regional Council Business Continuity, which is relevant to that discussion.
Yep.
Through you, Chair, and a question probably. This has been our whole desire through this committee to try and have these two pieces. And I thought what we've decided is that we would put our internal piece into the business continuity so that we were seeing it across all the multiple levels. But I think it's good for us to talk about whether we keep it separate or not. But I think, Katrina, it might be worth, and we do need to sit down with Shane. Let's look through the service level agreement that we're running out of group office to see what that picks up at in terms of the reporting back from HBRC to joint committee in terms of its responsibilities. And that sits alongside business continuity planning. So I just think we still need to find a way that we either keep them together or separate them, but they shouldn't be within the group office report. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Through you, Chair, that's clear. So that's correct. I have a responsibility to report to you as the GM responsible as the administering authority. Shane's responsibility as the director of the office is to report up to KEG and formally to joint committee, actually more importantly to the joint committee. Chris is correct. There's a business continuity paper coming next that addresses HBRC's emergency responsiveness. So it's about being clear that this paper should actually respond to, as Councillor Curtin said, what are the service level agreements, what are the implications that we need to deliver on in terms of a transformation plan or the SLA. Unless, of course, and then the question is, do you still want to have at FAR committee an update of the group office and their activities aside from HBRC's responsibilities as well? Because that's what I got from last time.
Yes.
So there's three elements there.
I'm very happy, Chair, to take that offline with group office, joint committee, Neil, Katrina, and we still are waiting for our new chief executive appointment to the CDEM joint committee and sort of bring that all back. And I think I'll just socialise that by email as to how we put it together. Is everyone comfortable with that? Yep.
Happy to move, Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Used to Woolworth being in that role, you see, so you're an anomaly.
I'll second.
And I do want to speak to him.
Okay, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, thank you, Katrina. As I said earlier, a really tremendous job done in the last event, and congratulations to the whole team. I think we're just about getting it right in terms of, if you like, our responsiveness internally. I would make this comment that I don't think, well, put it another way, I think it's more appropriate to be considering the responsibilities and delivery of HBRC's outputs alongside the central offices. I think we need to view this as a whole of system approach, and we need to have a line of sight on all of it. So that would be my appeal, as to they can be separated in the report, but they are treated as one system. And I think that was a significant finding or theme that emerged out of the review. I think there's a very strong desire to be treating our sort of emergency responsiveness as a whole, including those of the TAs. So we've got a very clear picture of that. And again, I make no apology for seeking to have line of sight on the CDEM outputs as well. I appreciate where you may be coming from, Katrina, in terms of not our lane, but I believe it is.
That's great timing.
So that's my if you like appeal for that, is to treat the whole thing as one system and to respond accordingly. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to 4.8, internal response preparedness.
Good entrance.
Nobody's
Are we
moving.
meant to go?
Oh, there's more for Neil to stop.
Okay, I would like to invite Stacey Dakiraki up to the table to introduce this, and I'll preface it with a couple of things. Firstly, that Stacey's bringing a more detailed paper to ELT next week, so this predates the ELT update just due to the sequencing.
Yeah. Is that a drill or should we move?
Well, that's the thing. I'm just going
It
to
usually should continue if it's a drill. We would have got a notification over the speaker if it was a drill, so I'm fairly confident it's
drill.
A drill?
Sorry, it's a drill.
Right.
Yeah, oh, the irony.
It's a test.
Okay.
Thank you.
We didn't pass the test because we all sat here.
Yeah, we failed.
I did ask.
Miserably.
So as I said, this predates an update to ELT, but just to reinforce, given that this